in philanthropy. That was their phrase for it. How to give away money efficiently, meaning how do you get back money? How do you get back more than what you give away? This has been the stratagem that has been used by so many of these people for many years, and the public has not really been aware of it. It's certainly true in the field of pharmaceutical research, which is, we're coming to that now. So now, for each dollar donated, you get back at least $2 and more in profits, and that's efficiency in philanthropy. Now let's put that into focus in terms of cancer research. The takeover of the medical industry was accomplished by the takeover of the medical schools, and this was done with efficiency in philanthropy. Before 1910, the state of medicine, or the practice of medicine in America, was quite mixed. There were a lot of excellent doctors, a lot of excellent institutions, and there was a mix of homeopathic doctors and allopathic doctors and chiropractic doctors and doctors of all different schools of thought. Many of them were excellent, but some of them were quacks. Some of them had no training whatsoever, and it was easy to get a certificate to put on your wall. There were literally diploma mills. You could write in, and for a few dollars you could get a diploma, and you could be a doctor. And so there was a lot of abuse going on in the medical field at that time, and the public was aware of it. Congress was aware of it. Everybody wanted to do something about it. But what are you going to do about it? Well, the people that we're talking about, Rockefeller and Carnegie in particular, came to the picture and said, we will put up money. We will solve the problem. And so they hired a fellow by the name of Abraham Flexner, and in 1910, Flexner produced what was called the Flexner Report, which was widely circulated, in which he identified the problems and the weaknesses in American medicine and suggested that the schools of this country be completely made over and the standards be increased and that the funding be increased. And this was the solution, money, of course. Then the people who paid for Flexner to do this report offered the money. They offered tremendous amounts of money to the schools that would agree to cooperate with them. What did they ask? Not very much, really. They had what they called a triumvirate, 3 men primarily. There was Abraham Flexner, his brother, Simon, I think it was Simon Flexner, and Fred Gates. He was the one I mentioned before who was the mastermind behind the strategy. Those 3 men, called the triumvirate, the donors said to the schools, we're giving you all this money. Now, would it be too much to ask if we could put some of our people on your board of directors to see that our money is being spent wisely? Well, when somebody's offering a starving school, a struggling school, a couple of $1 million, and all they ask in return is that some very well-known and prestigious individuals be added to your board of directors, the answer in many cases is yes, we'd be honored to have these people on our board of directors. Almost overnight, all of the major universities, which we now consider to be major universities in the field of medicine, received large grants from these sources and also accepted 1, 2, or 3 of these people that I mentioned on their board of directors, and the schools literally were taken over by the financial interests that put up the money. Now, what happened as a result of that is that the schools did receive an infusion of money. They were able to build new buildings. They were able to add expensive equipment to their laboratories. They were able to hire top-notch teachers. They were able to upgrade the level of medical education in America by 100-fold. But at the same time as doing that, they skewed the whole thing in the direction of pharmaceutical drugs. That was the efficiency in philanthropy. The doctors from that point forward in history would be taught pharmaceutical drugs. Those schools that did not accept those terms did not receive the money, and they generally fell by the wayside, and today you probably have never heard of them. All of the great teaching institutions in America were captured by the pharmaceutical interests in this fashion, and it's amazing how little money it really took to do it. So now the average doctor goes through school, he gets a great education, he has to be really smart to get through it. He learns all about drugs. He doesn't know too much about basic nutrition. I found that the average wife of these physicians knows more about nutrition than he does. But they sure know their drugs. And if you go to your typical doctor today, I don't care what it is, chances are you're going to walk out of there with a prescription. Why? Because that's what he has been trained to do. Drugs are the treatment of choice. Now, this is how it came to pass, ladies and gentlemen, and you need to know it. Our doctors need to know it, and interestingly enough, a lot of doctors are becoming aware of that now, and we're seeing, I think, what is the beginning of a mass exodus, or at least a rebellion, of young doctors who have gone through this process, and they see what pharmaceutical drugs are doing to their patients. They see that they're not helping, and that they see that they're causing more problems than they're curing, and they are rebelling. And they're beginning to ask questions. But we have a long, long way to go. Now, how does this play out in Laetrile? The classic example, between 1972 and 1977, Laetrile was in the news. And there was a lot of hoopla, largely brought about as a result of the work that I was doing and that Dr. John was doing and that Patricia was doing. And we had a militant organization. We were out there beating the pavement and sounding the alarm and giving testimony before a lot of state legislative committees and all that. We were making a lot of noise, and so we were in the press. Some of it not too favorable, I have to admit, but we were in the press. And so the question came, does Laetrile work or doesn't it? Come on, let's get on with it. Let's find out. Let's find some nice, prestigious place, some research institution that we can trust that will tell us whether Laetrile works or not. And what would be a better place than Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York on Manhattan? Now, everybody knows that the Memorial Sloan Cancer Center is at the top of the list of prestige. So, naturally, that was selected. And here's what happened. They began a series of tests on Laetrile, and they turned it over to their top laboratory technician, Dr. Kinematsu Segura, Japanese fellow. He was sort of at the end of his career. He was very well known, very held in high esteem by all of his associates. He was Mr. Laboratory Test. Whatever Segura said went for everybody. So they gave it to Segura. Segura ran his tests, and this was his report. He came to 5 conclusions. First of all, he said it improved the general health of the mice that he was using. Secondly, it appeared to relieve their pain. Thirdly, it inhibited the growth of tumors. Fourth, it stopped the spread of tumors. And 5, it acted as a cancer prevention. That was his official finding. And at the end of this report, this is a quote, Dr. Segura has never observed complete regression of these tumors in all his cosmic experience with other chemotherapeutic agents, end quote. An astounding good report card, wouldn't you say? So what happened? To appreciate what happened next, we must understand that John D. Rockefeller Sr. and his son J.D. II began donating money to Sloan Kettering in 1927, and in the 1930s they donated the block of land on which Sloan